In this video, we'll be introducing you to simplifying surds. So when operating with surds, it's important to note that a square root and a squared sign are opposite operations and therefore cancel each other out. So on your screen, there's an example there of root 12 in brackets to the power of 2. Essentially, the square root and the square sign cancel each other out, and what we're left over with is what was inside the square root sign, which is our 12. In the next example, you see 2 root 2 in brackets, all to the power of 2. Now remember, you need to break this up so everything inside the brackets is to the power of 2. So the coefficient 2, the front number 2, is to the power of 2. And then we have root 2 to the power of 2. Remember, the root sign and the squared sign cancel each other out. So we're left with 2 squared times 2, which is 4 times 2, which is 8. Now, a surd can also be simplified into its factors, where one of them is a square number such as 4, 9, 16, 25, so forth. I like to write these at the top of my page when I'm dealing with these type of surd questions. Underneath my square numbers, I also like to write what they are. So 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, and then you continue. So when you go to solve these problems, you start with something such as root 27. You then need to identify which is the largest square number that can go equally into 27 to give a whole number. This is root 9, or 9. So 27 turns into root 9, root 3. Now, underneath our 9 in the top row, you see it's 3 squared. Therefore, root 9 turns into 3. And our answer is 3 root 3. We will now answer some questions. So again, I have 3 root 3 to all to the power of 2. So the first thing you need to do is break it up. So I know I have 3 squared and then times my root 3 to the power of 2. So the first step is to break up. We then need to do our cancelling. So plus cancel. So I know that and that cancel out, and I'm left with 3 squared times 3, which is 9 times 3, which is 27. So we're going to do the same thing down in the second example here. So we have negative 2 squared times root 7 squared. We do our cancel, and we're left with 4 times 7, which is 28. Alright, now we're going to get into the somewhat more tricky aspect, which is simplifying surds. So again, like I said, I like to have my 2 rows at the top of my page, and now I have root 50 and I need to simplify this down. So the first thing I go is, well, which of those top row numbers can I equally put into 50? Now, I know it's 25, so I write that down first. I always like to write the square number first, and then I say, well, 50 divided by 25, so over here, 50 divided by 25 is 2, so I know my second root is root 2. Now, remember, up here, 25 turns into 5, so our root 25 is now 5, and we still are left with our root 2. So that there, we've just simplified it down. Now if I go to the next one, we have root 28, and we can do the same thing. I go up here. Now let's say I'm not sure which I need to do. Let's say I wanted to try and say, oh well, 9 can go into 28. So you would grab a calculator, you go 28 divided by 9, and you'll notice you'll get a fraction or a decimal. Therefore, that is not the right one. Now, you can keep going up or you can keep going down until you find the correct one. I know it's 4. So root 28 is going to be root 4, root 7. Now remember, if we go up here, 4 turns into 2. So 2 root 7 is our final answer. So to end the video, we'll do a quick recap. So again, when operating with surds, it's important to note that the square root and the squared are opposite operations, therefore they cancel each other out, as you can see in the example. And remember, a surd can be broken down into its factors, where one of them is a square number, such as the 4, 9, 16, 25. Going into these type of questions, my tips would be, again, to write down those two rows there in red at the top of your page, and take your time trying to find which square number goes into it. Don't rush with these, make sure you're doing them correctly, and you will make little mistakes.